Hi Centenary, how we doing? Pastor Bob, welcoming you to my home, and just want to let you know I'm praying for you, praying that God will bless you and keep you close to His heart during this coronavirus time. I got to thinking about something Paul said to the church in Ephesus. This is from the book of Ephesians, the 5th chapter, verses 15 to 20. And these words of Paul seem like they're pretty good words for us today. Paul starts off by saying, be very careful. And doesn't that sound like a good advice for today? Let's be very careful. Let's make sure we practice our social distancing. Let's wear our masks or our bandanas. Let's make sure we're washing our hands, and let's do the very best we can to be very careful, to live not as the unwise, Paul says, but as the wise. And then he goes on and he talks to us about being very, very careful. He says, verse 18, do not get drunk on wine, which leads to debauchery. So Paul is saying, a careful life is not one of intoxication. A careful life is one, well, Paul would say, of celebration, of worship. A careful life that we want to live is one of worship. Paul says it this way. He says, I want you to be filled with the Spirit. I want you to speak to one another with psalms and hymns and spiritual songs. I want you to sing and make music in your hearts to the Lord, always giving thanks to God the Father for everything in the name of our Lord Jesus Christ. Years ago, there was a gentleman who did just that. He was born in the 1500s in a little village called Eilenberg, Germany. His name was Martin Rinkart, and he grew up and always wanted to be a pastor of a church. And in 1618, he got his wish. He was appointed to the Lutheran church there in Eilenberg. Unfortunately, 1618 was also the beginning of the 30 Years' War. A war that devastated Europe. Martin was there in his village of Eilenberg, and people began to flock to that village because it was a walled city. And they thought, if I can get on the other side of that wall, get inside that city, I'll be safe. But the numbers that came into the community overwhelmed all the resources of that community. So that very, very soon there was famine from a lack of food. There was disease being spread all over the place. There was plague, and people were dying. Martin at one point was doing between 40 and 50 funerals per day. And when he discovered he was the last living pastor in the entire community, well, that year he did over 4,000 funerals, including the funeral for his wife. And yet, Martin says to us, or Paul says to us, I want you not to get drunk. I want you not to focus on the misery. I want you to focus on God. I want you to worship God. I want you to sing to God. Now, Martin didn't write a hymn, although the words he wrote later became a hymn. But he wrote a table grace that we now know as a very popular Thanksgiving hymn. Now thank we all our God. Let me share the words with you. Martin writes, now thank we all our God, with heart and hands and voices, who wondrous thing has done, in whom this world rejoices, who from our mother's arms has blessed us on our way, with countless gifts of love, and still is ours today. Oh, may this bounteous God through all our life be near us, with ever joyful hearts and blessed peace to cheer us, and keep us in His grace, and guide us when perplexed, and free us from all ills in this world and the next. All praise and thanks to God the Father now be given, the Son and Him who reigns with them in highest heaven, the one eternal God whom earth and heaven adore, for thus it was, is now, and shall be evermore. I like the words of Paul, and I like the words of Martin Reinhardt, who said to us, don't be foolish. Let's be wise. Let's turn our focus onto God. Let's worship God together. And together, let's go one day at a time through this virus. All right, church? We'll see you again real soon. Bye-bye.